What's up, YouTube? It's me, Alex. We are on part 3 of the MCU's X-Men fan casting. And if you haven't seen part 1 or part 2, make sure you check those out. Part 1, I talk about Scott and Jean. In part 2, I talk about Hank and Bobby. And in this one, I'm talking about Warren and Ororo. So, if you want to know about how I would like to see the MCU bring the mutants into their universe, check out part 1 because I explained it all in there. I hope you guys stick through this video to see who I fan cast for these two characters, especially Ororo, because she is one of my favorite X-Men, and I know that she's probably one that causes up a lot of debate on who should play her. So definitely stick it out to find out who I chose for Ororo. Now, before we get started, be sure to subscribe. Oh my gosh. So, without further ado, let's get started. So first we're going to be talking about Warren Worthington III. So some quick background information on him. Warren Kenneth Worthington III is the mutant son of the wealthy Warren K. Worthington Jr. and his wife Catherine, neither of whom were aware that their son had developed a large pair of feathered wings extending from his back, enabling him to fly. However, the doctor who delivered him noticed that his shoulder blades were a little weird, so he basically kind of knew that he would probably develop a mutation. I don't know why he didn't say anything, but there you go. And at some point, he was dating this girl named Amanda Cobb. I mean, she's not really important, but Amanda Cobb. And he began his first superhero career when a fire broke out at his dorm at Phillips Academy in New Hampshire. He disguised himself with a wig and a nightshirt. Don't know where he got the wig, but he had a wig. And he lowered 2 students to safety with a rope. He also saved fellow student Cameron Hodge from a bully and made a lifelong friend. I'll talk about him more later. So Angel broke up with his girlfriend Amanda Cobb because he was afraid that she would find out about his wings. I guess I get it because, you know, obviously when you're different, you have mutation, you're worried about how people will react to you. But wings are so cool, you know, like, oh man. I think it's more useful if you could detract them as opposed to having to wear harnesses, which is what Warren had to wear a lot when he wanted to hide his wings. For a little while, he became the costume superhero known as the Avenging Angel, and he caught the attention of Professor X, who recruited him as the 3rd of the 5 founding members of the X-Men. Warren was very carefree. He would often fly off during the lectures because he just like, whatever, I don't have time for this. I mean, if I had wings, I probably would fly off too. He initially had an attraction to Marvel Girl, but he spent most of his time dating a girl named Candy Southern. That sounds like a stripper name. Just saying. So I want to touch on that Cameron kid that I mentioned before when I said he was his friend. Okay, so basically what ends up happening with Cameron is that he was the roommate of Warren's in college, and Warren was under the impression that they were good friends, but actually Cameron was really jealous, and when he was later revealed as Angel, it really fueled Cameron's hatred, and so all those feelings that he kind of kept hidden really kind of just came out, and he believed that mutants were a threat to the freedom of normal humans and therefore should be destroyed. So he became a lawyer, and then he turned to advertising and public relations and became a highly successful member of the leading New York City advertising agent. While he was doing all that, he created the Right secret organization devoted to the destruction of all mutants, and he was the leader of this group and was known as the Commander. So Warren believed that Hodge was still his friend, and he went to help him come up with a way to combat the growing prejudice against mutants because he thought that Cameron was on his side. And so they came up with the idea for the original X Factor, and the original members of the X-Men, B, Cyclops, Marvel Girl, and Iceman, all agreed to join the group, and it was supposed to be mutant hunters who would in fact make contact with mutants and train them in the use of their powers. However, it backfired because it just intensified people's hatred of mutants, which is what Cameron Hodge planned. So he basically played them. This really kind of feeds into my plea for a mutants or X-Men mini-series on Disney Plus, because this kind of stuff is really interesting, and I feel like it would be too much to put into a movie that's just that where you introduce 5 new characters. So this really makes good evidence for a mini-series. Cameron Hodge arranged for his group to kidnap the young mutant known as Richter, which you probably remember from the Logan movie, and he wanted him to create an earthquake, which could be blamed on the mutants, but the X Factor foiled their scheme, and they rescued Richter. But in terms of Angel's metal wings, Angel got hurt, his wings got pinned to the wall. Hodge made it seem like that Warren's wings were infected to the point that amputation was necessary, but Warren didn't want this, obviously, but Hodge had a court order issued to go through the amputation. I don't understand how this happens. How can you issue a court order for my body? Like, what? So he managed to get his wings amputated, and so of course Warren was distraught by this experience, and he wanted to fly one more time on his private jet, but Hodge sabotaged the jet and exploded, which made people think that Warren committed suicide and believed that he was dead, but he actually had been teleported away by Apocalypse. Dun, dun, dun. So he was brainwashed and began to serve Apocalypse, and Apocalypse warped his body similarly to how he did in the movie, and he warped his body and his mind into his own Angel of Death and placed him into his team as the Horseman of Death. Warren's skin turned blue. He grew a set of biometallic wings from his back that could retract and also fire dart blades with a neurotoxin. Warren's new wings could fly higher, faster, and were razor sharp. Okay, at some point, everything turned out fine. I mean, it all worked out in a way, and Warren got to keep his metallic wings, and he had to learn how to really control them, because from what I was reading at some point, all of that seemed to really affect his mind, and Warren just kind of went through a lot psychologically. So, I mean, they all have, but damn. So, yeah, basically, just, there's a lot. Read it. Interesting stuff. Everything that deals with flying, he can do it. He has peak human strength because of his natural mutation, and his superhuman stamina, durability, and as Archangel, because I guess he can switch between the two, he has techno-organic wings. And he has a weakness for beautiful women. I am dead. But, like, low-key, though, Angel's really interesting, so I hope you guys check him out. It seems like Warren has gone through a lot when it comes to his personality, but it seems like at the base that he is a rich brat, and he acts like a snob. And he's used to having nice things, nice sports car, best looking girls, best entertainment. And because of this, he has a hard time accepting orders from Scott. And at one point, he wants to date Jean, which causes a bigger rift between him and Scott. Because we've had the love triangle between Jean, Logan, and Scott for so long, I don't think we need to necessarily have another love triangle between these three. I think it'd be okay to kind of show Warren flirting with her, but I feel like that he would do it just to get on Scott's nerves, not because he actually liked Jean. Maybe in the beginning that may be the case, but I feel like if once we introduce Candy into the mix, we can probably change her name though, that I feel like he would just be fine. So I think we don't need to do a full love triangle between them. He can just flirt with Jean to just kind of get under Scott's, skin, because I feel like that's what Warren would do. All that said, though, he is a do-gooder. I mean, he did save those kids from his dorm when it was on fire, and he's very competent, very effective with his work, and he can be a team player even though they already are chaotic, but he does do his role even if he does give Scott grief for it. And as for movie Warren, we've had two versions of him. We had from X-Men The Last Stand, we had Ben Foster play him, which honestly was really good casting because Ben Foster's a great actor, with Caden Boyd playing young Warren. And honestly, that scene where he's in the bathroom like trying to scrape his wings off is really kind of emotional and sad, like, honestly. So that's great stuff. We didn't get to see much of him though. They actually wanted to introduce him in X2. He was going to be one of Stryker's experiments, but they decided to cut him, so he was in The Last Stand. And like I said, he didn't get a lot to do. He was kind of there to be a test subject, but then we didn't really see him again until the end. He had that really cool scene where he busts out the window though. Really cool. And I feel like they played that up in the trailer a lot, but we didn't really see him again until the end, where he came out of nowhere to save his dad. He came out of nowhere to save his dad. Oh man, like what? And so then X-Men Apocalypse, he was there again, but he was played by Ben Hardy this time, which I don't really know him, but from what I saw, he was fine, very much a broody person. I still need to know how he got caught in that cage. Like, why was he a cage fighter? In my headcanon, which I'll talk about this when I get to Nightcrawler as well, Warren was maybe studying abroad, or he was doing like a backpacking through Europe kind of thing, something where he was in a different country. And because he's a rich kid, he got involved in something he was supposed to get involved in, and he either got kidnapped and forced to fight in that cage, because he seemed like kind of scared, but he also enjoyed the fight. So I think that kind of worked out for him, or he was told that he could win extra money or something prestigious because he likes, the spotlight. They had something that he could do, which would be these cage fights, and they would put good use to his abilities. And then he did it, but ended up getting stuck. So he basically ended up living with the fact that he would never get out, because if he did, they could potentially kill him. And even though Warren can be very difficult, I think he does value his life. And who knows, they had somebody that he was traveling with that they were threatening, so that could potentially be a reason why he also worked with them as well. So that's kind of how I thought how he ended up there in that movie, because I don't get why he ended up there otherwise, because it's just really weird. I mean, like, a cage fighter? That's so interesting. Anyway, He ended up being found because Psylocke was able to find him, and then Apocalypse was like, okay, you're gonna be on my team, and he turned him, his wings did get damaged. Kurt did damage his wings, and so Apocalypse ended up changing his form to where he had the metal wings in general, which seemed a very painful transformation. But he did that. He literally has no more lines. Him and Kurt do get another face off, which I really kind of was interested in, because the angel and the devil, with that whole kind of foil thing they had going on, was really interesting, and I feel like that fight could have been a lot better, but it was just too much, because obviously using Kurt's powers, it made it seem confusing, and I just kind of wish we got to see them fight more, because I feel like that angel would really be pissed at Kurt for ruining his wings. I mean, he probably would be thankful because he got those new cool metal wings, but I feel like he would still be mad and hold a grudge. That's just kind of how I feel on that. So I feel like that fight should have been a lot more brutal and intense than it was, but whatever, I guess I just want to see blood. And he basically ended up dying, and then that was it. So, wasted again. It really sucks that we had him 2 times, played by good actors, and he was wasted. So I would hope that he would be better used, because he's part of the team. He was the 3rd member added to the team. So I think it's important to have him for that reason. So when it comes to my fan cast, to remind you, I have 3. So teenagers, young adult, which would be in their 20s, and then they're older, which would be 35 plus. So for Warren, it actually took me a really, really, really long time to find a teenage Warren that I like, because when I first did my fan cast on my blog, I just had 2. I had a younger and an older, and the younger just counted for whatever they decided to go, and then older. And so I'll tell you who I chose originally, because he's still my young adult choice, because he's great. I finally was looking through different TV shows that are out, and so I landed on Julie and the Phantoms, and I was looking at the cast of that, and I came across Owen Patrick Joyner, and I was like, interesting. And so I googled him, I looked up some pictures, looked up some interviews and some clips of him from the show, as well as other shows that he was in, and I was like, you know what, I feel like that you would fit this role. He definitely kind of gives off this pretty boy vibe, as well as being kind of a little snob, and he could be a jerk if he really, really wanted to, but also be very charming and very kind, almost like a gentle snob. So I feel like that he really worked in that regard. I haven't seen him actually act, because I haven't watched that show, but just from the clips that I saw and from the interviews that I saw, he really kind of stuck out to me, and he stayed in my mind even as I was looking for other people, just to kind of leave my options open. I kept coming back to Owen, so I think that from what I was able to see and from the research that I've done on this actor, that he would be a great choice for teenage Warren. He is 20, and I think he works, and he just seems like a nice little guy, but I feel like he would also turn around and get on your nerves too, and I can see him and Levi Miller really arguing and things like that. I feel like that would really work. My young adult choice for Warren, who I've had for a really, really long time, and I really like this actor. I think he's a very charming guy. Oh my god, I like him so much. I will literally put him in everything as well, because I like him so much. Everything that I have seen him in, I have genuinely liked his character, and that is Austin Butler. Well, except for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, his character was gross, but that was the point. But I feel like I was introduced to him from Switched at Birth. He played Wilkie. He was dating Daphne for a while, and I actually really liked them together. He was probably the only boyfriend of hers I actually genuinely liked. And then he left the show because he went to go do the Shannara Chronicles on MTV, which I didn't watch until much, much later. And I very much enjoyed that show. And then I watched The Carrie Diaries because he was in it, and I really liked his character in that too. And at one point he was supposed to be playing Elvis, but I feel like this movie has been filming forever. Kelvin Harrison Jr. is playing B.B. King. Oh my gosh, love him. He's great. So Austin Butler I think would be perfect for Warren. He would be a great foil to Graham Phillips's Scott. They would definitely get into each other's faces. I could definitely see him flirting with Zoe Duchess Jean and probably making her blush, and then really annoying Graham. Oh my god, I can see it working right now. He's just a little smirk. I can't. He'd be so good. He'd be so good. So Austin Butler. And then lastly, my older Warren I've had for a while, and I thought about changing him, but then I decided that I didn't need to, because I'm pretty sure there's other people that you guys might suggest who could be better, and that's awesome. But he definitely stood out to me, and I feel like from the things that I've seen him in, he would do really well with this part as well, and that is Dan Stevens. And I find Dan Stevens to be very funny, also charming, charismatic in his own way. I was introduced to him from Night at the Museum 3 when he was Lancelot, and he was funny, but they sometimes get into certain jokes with him a little too much, and I was like, alright. But you can tell that he has good comedic timing, and I think that Warren could get some laughs, but not in oh, I'm a jokester kind of way, like how Bobby is, but just some of the things that he may say, as well as his delivery. I don't think I've ever heard him do an American accent, so I don't know how that, because he is British, so I don't know how that would go, but I think that he could do it just fine. I mean, he's an actor, he can obviously learn, but then also him being in Beauty and the Beast as the Beast, I liked him. I thought he did a really good job as a character. I mean, obviously a lot of it was motion capture, but I thought he did a good job. I feel like that him and Sam Claflin were really kind of butt heads, and I feel like because Sam Claflin kind of gives off that energy of like, I'm trying really hard to be serious here, and I can see Dan Stevens like being like, all right, calm down, like we're not kids anymore, you don't gotta always try to tell him what to do, Scott. I feel like that dynamic would be really, really good. So Dan Stevens for adult Angel Warren. I also feel like that if they do that Archangel bit where the whole thing with Cameron happens and he loses his wings, I feel like they have to do the Apocalypse story, because I feel like if they don't do that, then I feel like it would mess up a lot of his story, because there's so much that is tied into the manipulation that Apocalypse did to him. So I just hope that if they do that, they would do a lot better than the movie did, and that honestly could be a 3-movie situation. When it comes to these big arcs that happen in the comics, they should be more than just one movie, and I really encouraged them as a fan and as someone who enjoys movies, who likes character development, and who really likes to see that kind of stuff take its time and not be rushed. That's what I really encouraged for them to do. And so I feel like that both Austin Butler and Dan Stevens, who I feel like would be the ones to handle it better as opposed to Owen, because I feel like he's too young for that particular storyline. But I feel like my other two choices, Austin and Dan, would handle that really, really well. My honorable mentions for Warren, I have one teenage mention, and I actually came across him while I was looking for fan cast for a different fandom, and I came across this actor Elijah Stevenson. He was in the show called Everything Sucks. He could possibly handle Warren in a different kind of snobby way, I guess, similarly to kind of how Chuck Bass is kind of slimy, but not that slimy, because I don't want him to be slimy to the point where it's unlikable. He just may be rude, but he's not a bad person. Chuck is a bad person. I don't care what nobody says. He's a bad person. So I feel like Elijah Stevenson, from what I was able to see of him and off of his looks, he would be a good teenage Warren. Now for my young adult, I have Ross Lynch, who also is great. I'd put him in everything, and he would be a little bit more earnest. Dylan Sprouse would be great. Drewvin Acker, who I believe I suggested as an honorable mention for Scott, but he would be a good Warren as well. Colin Ford, who I really know him from Supernatural, where he played a young Sam, and he's great. He'd be a good Scott too, but I think I like him better for Warren. It would be different from what I've seen him play. And then Alex Pettyfer as well. I remember I used to really like him, because when he was cast as Alex Rider, there could not be a more perfect casting for that character. Like, oh my gosh, like, y'all, I'm pretty sure no one saw this movie. But yes, Alex Pettyfer, I really liked him. And then something happened, and he didn't get as big as I think people assumed that he would get, but he'd be great as well. And then Freddie Stroma, who I think would be a fantastic Warren. I definitely know him from Harry Potter. He played Cormac McLaggen, and Warren is basically that character, a little bit more likable, but he basically is the character he played in Harry Potter. So I think he'd be great. And then lastly, for my older version of Warren, I chose Billy Magnuson, and I was introduced to him officially, I believe, from Into the Woods. He played the younger prince who fell in love with Rapunzel, and he was really funny in that. And of course, he was in Aladdin, which he was really funny in that too. Very likable. So any of these 3 actors that I chose, Owen, Austin, Dan, that could play Warren similarly but also differently in their approaches, especially depending on what stage of his life that they are in and what storyline that they decide to give them for this character. And I think they all would do a really, really great job. So yes. So on to my favorite X-Men. I have a lot to say about Storm. So this video ends up being a little longer than I expected. It's because I'm talking about Storm. Ororo Munroe is the daughter of a king and tribal princess and of an American photojournalist who was living in Cairo, Egypt at the time. And they were victims of a plane crash that destroyed her home. Basically, what ended up happening was the house like caved in around her, similar to like what they showed about what happened to Wanda and Pietro, where they were like stuck under the rubble of their house for a while. But because she was stuck underneath that house that exploded next to her parents' dead bodies, she developed claustrophobia. When she managed to escape from the rubble, only thing she had was her tattered clothes and her mother's ancestral ruby. So she was homeless and orphaned. She found a gang of street urchins in Cairo who took her to their master, Ahmed El Gabar, and Ahmed trained Ororo in the arts of thievery, just like Fagin taught Oliver Twist. She became his prize pupil because, of course, and she excelled in both pickpocketing as well as picking locks. And during her time, tried to pickpocket an American tourist who was obviously not having it, and guess who that was? Charles Xavier. And he used his abilities to stop her thievery. Xavier, however, took note that she was a mutant based off of Braylon. And he decided not to contact her at that moment because he did not want to shock her with the nature of her true powers. At this point, she still hadn't used anything, so he didn't want to like cause any problems with her. Some years later, when she was about 12, Ororo felt a strong urge to wander south and she left Cairo. During her travels, she accepted a ride from a complete stranger and was almost raped by him. And this caused her to defend herself. So after defending herself by killing him, she decided to not take another human life. She wandered for a really, really long time and she almost died while going across the Sahara Desert. Her ability to psionically control the weather emerged soon after that. This thing said that she ended up coming across Prince T'Challa, who was about to be kidnapped and killed, but they ended up sharing a little romance and they spent a lot of time together. However, because T'Challa was a prince, he could not continue to explore their mutual attraction. So Ororo finally reached her ancestors' homeland of Kilimanjaro Valley on the Serengeti Plain in Kenya. Ororo was taken in by the elderly tribe woman named Annette, who taught her to be responsible with her power. Ororo soon became the object of worship of the local tribes, who believed her to be the goddess due to her gift. She found herself later in the savage land and was forced to battle the threat of a mutant energy manipulator who used Ororo's control over weather, known as Deluge. But he sought revenge against humanity, so the X-Men ended up helping her, and Deluge was seemingly destroyed, and so Ororo returned to her life among the tribe people. Months later, Professor X came to her because he had no choice to recruit her, as well as other mutants around the world, to rescue his original students from the threat of a sentient island being known as Krakoa. So he explained to her that she was not a goddess, but a mutant, and had a responsibility to use her abilities to help the world. I am always a goddess, sir, just as she helped the local tribes. So, because she was curious, she accepted his offer, and he gave her a code name Storm. After most of the original team left, she became part of the new recruits, which included Nightcrawler, Colossus, Wolverine, Thunderbird, and Banshee. This group was particularly adults, so at some point she does end up leading the team and just a bunch of other things. And in the comics that I read, where it was like her standalone series where she had the mohawk, her and Logan actually dated. And I really liked it. And I feel like my coworker friend said that they're dating right now. I don't know. I really liked Ororo and Logan dating. It was really kind of cute. Like, they were cute. I also really appreciate in that particular comic series how Storm and Beast were really, really good friends. I remember there was a couple panels where she was like so emotional about something that he had to like fly her out of the atmosphere just so she could unleash her emotions, because her emotions can mess up like the weather of Earth, which could throw off so much stuff. So she's that powerful. I want to see that kind of stuff too. And what makes me angry is that every time we see her in a movie, they always want to show off her lightning. Yes, she can manipulate light. She can do so much more than that, and she can fly. She can ride the wind and fly. Let this woman fly. Okay, so like, speaking of her powers, let's talk about some of her powers, because I'm sick of seeing the same stuff. Oh yeah, I guess to briefly mention the whole thing with her and T'Challa. So from what I read, to sum up, her and T'Challa came back together after they met when they were younger, and they got married and things like that. And she was the queen of Wakanda and considered now one of the most important mutants in the world, and she was the living symbol of human and mutant relationships, because T'Challa is a human, just an enhanced human, and Charles believed that she was born to play this role. So I think the biggest reason why Storm and T'Challa ended up divorcing was there's this whole thing that happened. It was the Avengers versus the X-Men, and so Captain America has summoned her to an Avengers meeting detailing their plans for the coming of the Phoenix Force and to prepare for a fight against the mutants of Utopia, which I don't know if you remember from from Dark Phoenix, that island that Magneto was on, that was Utopia. Storm was angry, so she left, and she sided with her fellow X-Men and her fellow mutants against the Avengers. I mean, which makes sense. So Namor attacked and almost destroyed Wakanda, and because he was searching for the Avengers, and T'Challa felt that Storm had betrayed him and choosing the X-Men over him, basically. And he named the X-Men enemies of his country because, you know, stuff. And so Storm threw down her ring after a confrontation with her husband, and the high priest of the Panther cult had their marriage annulled. But she still aided the Avengers to free their teammates from the Phoenix imbued X-Men, and a final confrontation to defeat the Phoenix. So it seems like there's a lot of times where Storm is kind of, where she was pulled between her husband and her duty, the country she married into, versus like her family that she pretty much spent all this time with. And so I think that would be really interesting to see as well. So for her powers, she's able to control the weather and the atmosphere and is considered to be one of the most powerful mutants on the planet. She's considered Omega level. Her powers are very mystical in nature owing to her descent from a long line of sorceresses. So she has atmokinesis, which allows her to manipulate the weather. She can modify the temperature of the environment, control all forms of precipitation, humidity, and moisture at a molecular level, generate lightning and other electromagnetic atmospheric phenomena, and has demonstrated excellent control over atmospheric pressure. She can incite all forms of meteorological tempests such as tornadoes, thunderstorms, blizzards, and hurricanes. All this stuff, and y'all always show her messing with lightning? Really? And she can also dissipate the weather to form clear skies. She has precise control over the atmosphere, and it allows her to create special weather effects. Also demonstrated the ability to control natural forces that include storms, solar wind, ocean currents, and electromagnetic energy. So she's shown to be sensitive to the dynamics of the natural world. So because of her psionic powers over the weather, her emotions can affect the weather, like I said. Oh, she also has willpower and telepathic resistance, which she was able to gain over time by working with the X-Men, which obviously I would learn too. And thermal variance, which means her body can counteract all the extremes of weather. My girl is great. Boom. She's regal as a queen, but she can be very cold and aloof to her enemies. You cross her anger will be very, very frightening. But at the same time, she's very warm and generous to her friends, very nurturing and protective, which makes sense because every time I see her, well, besides the movies, every time I've seen her, she's been pretty protective. I mean, I guess Halle Berry's version was kind of protective, but you know, I guess I'll give her that. She's a lover of all nature, and she's always surrounded by plants, and she tends to be like a mother, even talking to them. Storm is a plant mom. I want to see plants. Plants in her room. And she has a very, very strong strength of will, which is said to be only second to Charles's. And this is a trait that has won her the admiration of friend and foe alike. She's also a very cunning and resourceful fighter, and players should be prepared to be inventive while playing her. See, Storm is a woman of all traits. She can kick your ass by hand-to-hand combat. She is mystical, and she controls the weather. What? You come fight me if you want to. Yes. In X-Men Evolution, she was a teacher, so she was older than Scott, Jean, and all of them, and she was really cool, and she just very much was like that. Very motherly, very nurturing, very kind, but she would put you in your place if she needed to. And then just the way she kind of interacted with Beast and the way she interacted with Charles, you could tell that she was very, very well respected. And so I think that is definitely something that we need to make sure we keep. So I found this quote, and I thought it was great. Thunder. Are you so drunk with artificial power that you would compare your impotent noise to the earth-shaking fury of nature itself? That, boastful child, is not thunder. This is thunder, the elemental fury of storm unleashed. Kaboom! Oh man, like more of that. If you want to give her one-liners, make sure they're good one-liners, please. Storm has had a lot of looks, and I'm just going to put some of them up on the screen because she's had a lot of great looks, and honestly, any of them will work fine for however they want to introduce her. Black woman's hair is so versatile that I feel like that she would do whatever she wants with her hair, so I kind of would expect her to wear her hair any kind of way she wants to. So for the movie versions of Storm, we've had two. We've had Halle Berry and Alexandria Shipp. No disrespect to either one of these actresses. The writing for Storm has not been great, and I have not been happy with either version of her, besides the fact that both of the women who have played her have been lighter skinned actresses, where Storm could have been played by someone who was more brown skinned or darker skinned. There's definitely this acceptability of the type of black actresses that the mainstream seems to be okay with, and actresses like Halle Berry and Alexandria Shipp are a part of that group. And I think it's great that you have all shades of black people in various roles, but I think it just sucks when you have the opportunity for representation, you choose to go for the more acceptable version as opposed to the one that we see. Storm is a dark-skinned, brown-skinned woman, and I feel like that is definitely a missed opportunity for them not to cast somebody as such. People come in all shades regardless, but black people come in all shades, that it really sucks to see that the ones that seem to be accepted are the lighter shades. So I think that this would be a good opportunity for whatever they do going forward to choose actresses who are darker skinned. If they're not Kenyan or African themselves, as Storm is, then I think that it would be great to have a darker skinned actresses because they deserve to be represented as well. So no shade to Halle Berry, Alexandria Shipp for being light skinned. I mean, I'm light skinned, but that doesn't mean that they should be the only acceptable versions of black. To get that out of the way, in terms of the characterization, I never really felt that Halle Berry's Storm ever had the regality and the leadership that she should have had. Maybe in The Last Stand, that's where she had it the most. But by that point, I was already done with her. Because in the first movie, obviously she has a horrible line we all remember. And she doesn't really have a role in that otherwise. And then in the second one, she's there, but I don't really recall her having much to do besides the couple scenes where she in the jet and she's like, and she makes all those tornadoes. And then the other scene at the end where she like freezes out Jason to save Xavier, and Kurt refuses to leave her, so he almost freezes to death. Oh, I guess she did do some snow there, so she did make the room really cold. So lightning, little bit of wind, some tornadoes, and cold. That's what we've seen from Storm in all these movies. From all of them, is those 4 things. And then in The Last Stand, she did have some interesting fights with Calypso, but Calypso kicked her butt until the end when she happened to fall into a vent, and Storm was able to electrocute her. So whatever. Halle Berry just didn't fit to me what I've seen Storm to be. Back in the day, I heard that Angela Bassett was originally approached for Storm, which is literally the most perfect thing in the world, but she turned it down because obviously it was the 2000s and she was like, this is not going to go well, so I'm not going to do this. And so she passed on it, which then she later was in Green Lantern. Ma'am. But she got to turn around and be T'Challa's stepmother, Queen Ramonda, so that works out for her. It's perfectly fine. And as for Alexandria Shipp, they cast her because she's the younger version of Halle Berry Storm. And I wasn't very sold on her because the 2 things I'd seen her in prior, which was the Aaliyah movie as well as the Drumline 2, she was not that great of an actress to me, so I was not very pleased with that choice. She wasn't horrible, and she actually even tried the accent. Like, Halle Berry lost the accent after the first after the first movie, so I guess you could say she assimilated, but whatever. But Alexandria Shipp, she kept the accent. For those of you who are fans of the X-Men who are African, like, how's Alexandria Shipp's accent in X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix? Let me know in the comments below. What really bothered me with her was that they made her a fan of Mystique, and I didn't understand that. I was like, why? Why would she look up to her? I don't get it. Like, that's what makes me mad to this day. I don't even understand that choice. Because you can't be like her. I want to be like her. Be like her how? You can't be like her. You have 2 different powers, and you literally watched her on screen point a gun at the humans, at the president, and everybody else. But you want to be like her? Made the choice to not do it later? Ma'am, what? That does not make sense to me. Because what? You want what? Whatever. And then she, of course, was manipulated by Apocalypse. So, and no. That is not how Storm gets her white hair. She was born with white hair. So that kind of made me mad too. I was like, what is this? I did appreciate her being a thief. I thought that was cute. And I also appreciate the fact that she was like the leader of a bunch of thieving kids. So we got to kind of see her motherly nature in that. But we never really got to see that again. She doesn't really have many other lines either until towards the end when she goes up to Quicksilver and is like, Mystique told me he's your dad. Like, I'm still mad about that. Why would Mystique tell Storm that that's his dad? Like, I don't understand. And then in Dark Phoenix, I just remember her being very angry. I just remember her being very, very angry, and that's all I remember. So I've only seen the movie 1 time, and it's very forgettable anyway, because there's some of these movies I haven't seen in some years, and I still remember beats of them. Both actresses miscast as Storm, and I really hope going forward that we move away from what we have seen previously, and I hope that my casting sheds light on what my thinking is, and what I encourage their thinking to be when it comes to who they should cast and who could be great in this role. For my teenage version, it took me a really long time to find somebody who I could really like settle on, someone who could definitely be very strong but maybe a little naive to the world, but also very hip to the world. So I feel like that Storm would be very street smart in Cairo, and someone who could play a lot of her vulnerability, especially when it comes to like claustrophobia and how she may feel as being an orphan and feeling like she needs to prove herself to Ahmed and all that things like that. So I ended up choosing Rielle Downs, who I've seen from Henry Danger, and I watched a lot of clips with her, a lot of interviews with her, and I really like her energy. She seems like a very kind young woman. Even in Henry Danger, from what I saw, her character is funny. She definitely like holds her own, which I feel like that's what Storm needs to be. And I feel like that Rielle Downs will be really great with that, and I feel like that she will look good with the white hair and the blue contact, and she has a great speaking voice. For my young adult Storm, I originally had a different actress, but I hadn't seen her act in anything. I was really going off of physicality, but when I was redoing this, I changed her to somebody else, but then I came across another actress, and so now I have 2 people. Now I have 2 people for young adult Storm. So I couldn't really choose between the 2, but I think they both would do great in their own way. So I have Coco Jones as Storm 1, young adult, not in any particular order, but I like Coco Jones a lot. She of course had been part of Disney Channel prior. I did fan cast her, and as an honorable mention in my Hercules video, and I will also be showing her as a fan cast for something else that I will show down the line. But I would really love to see her make a comeback, and I feel like that this would be a good opportunity for her. I think she is beautiful, she is very smart and sassy, and I really like watching her YouTube videos, and I think that she would do really great as Storm. And I feel like, I don't know if any of these girls can do the accent, so if they can't find an African Kenyan actress, that would obviously be ideal, but because I'm not familiar, I have to go off what I know, and so I don't know if any of them can do an accent. Obviously they would have to work really, really hard at it, but I feel like Coco Jones will be able to handle it, and I feel like that she would also look great with the white hair, and I just really like her sassiness. I think that she would have great chemistry with all of my choices from my previous people, and with her being young, she would still have the opportunity to be a little bit naive, but also still really on her toes as well, so I think she'd be great. And I feel the same way about Lovie Simone, who is my other choice for young adult Storm. I'm not as familiar with her as I am with Coco Jones, but from what I did see of her, of the clips that I looked at and some of the pictures I saw, that I feel like that she would also do a great job just off of what I've seen. I didn't watch The Craft Legacy, and I haven't seen Monster yet. I think she's in Greenleaf, which I also haven't watched, so I'm really going off of clips and interviews, because I feel like when you're playing a character like this who is so beloved, that you would need to be likable, and I feel like that she comes off very likable to me. And I also just like love her feel. Like, she just kind of feels regal to me. I don't know why, but she does. And I feel like that she would do a great job and look great with the white hair as well. So Coco Jones and Lovie Simone as my young adult Storm. So lastly, I've had this option for Storm for a really long time, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it came from, but I was introduced to her from Once Upon a Time. She had like a minor, like a reoccurring role, and I like the actress as opposed to liking the character, and that is Sonequa Martin Green. And there's something about her that every time I see her, I see Storm. I don't know what it is, but she literally has also had her hair in so many different ways, that versatility, like I said, she has it, and she also comes off very strong, very regal. Piss her off, she will kick your butt, and also very warm to the people that she cares about, and very motherly. And because Storm does lead her team later down the line, I feel like that Sonequa will do a really great job with that, just from what I've seen of the clips from the Star Trek show that she's in. And I just think that she would be so good. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where she came from in my head, but I just remember being like, who's the actress that I was like looking at, and I was like, oh my god, she's great. And every time I see her, I'm like, hey, Sonequa, my girl. I really want her to be Storm. Like, I want her to be Storm so bad. So if they happen to do like adult versions, I really want her to be Storm. I think that she would be so good, and I feel like that her and either Bridget Regan or even Holland Rodan would have great chemistry as friends. And whoever is Logan, I did not fan cast him, so whoever he is, if he's like around her age, the actress's age, that they would be great. And I feel like that her and Luke Evans as my adult Beast would have a really good friendship, and I feel like that she would be a great mentor to my choice for Kitty. And she just has this voice that I can just see her, that quote I said earlier, I can just see her saying it. Oh my god, I love her. She would look so good in that white hair, as well as whatever version of Storm's costume they decide to go in. I feel like that she would rock it. She would be great. Love her. So my big list of honorable mentions for Storm. For teenage Storm, I have two. Lydia Jewett, who I know from The Darkest Minds, and I feel like that she would be really good as a young Storm. And also Shahadi Wright Joseph, who I particularly know from Us, and she also voiced Nala in the Lion King remake, and she also played Nala, I believe, on Broadway, and I think she's in that show Them, which I haven't watched. But yeah, I think they both would do a really good job. So for my young adult Storm, I have Sierra McLean, who I haven't seen much from her, but she's a very strong look and a great voice. Kiki Lane was who I had originally as my young adult Storm, but because I hadn't seen her act in anything, I decided to change her. And so the only thing I've seen her in so far was Coming to America 2, which kind of helped her case for me, but at that point I already kind of moved on from her. But I still think that she would do a good job as Storm. She has a look, and she clearly did an accent and that, and I did enjoy her, and I was very much more interested in her character in that movie as opposed to the son. I think she'd be fine. Deborah Ayurinde, who did a small part in Luke Cage as well as in Girls Trip, and I think she's beautiful, and I think she has a great look and voice as well. And then I have Nafisa Williams, who I know as Anissa from Black Lightning. She was Thunder. I loved her on that show, and I think that she would also be a great Storm. She definitely has the physicality, and she's done a superhero show before, so she would kind of know what to expect and all the physical stuff that she would have to do. So I think she'd be great. And then I have Ashley Blaine Featherson, who would skew young adult to older because of the age that she's kind of in, and she kind of has a more mature look about her as well. But I know her particularly from Dear White People, the movie and the show, and she also has a very strong look, and I do like her in the show, and she has a good vulnerability about her as well as being really strong, so I think that she would do great. And now for my older Storm, I have Anna Diop, who currently plays Starfire on Titans, and she's fantastic. I think she'd be just as good as Storm as she is as Starfire. So Yaya DaCosta, who I love everything I've seen her in, I think she's a really good actress, and I really like her a lot. She'd be great as Storm too. Jodie Turner-Smith, who I was introduced to from Queen and Slim, and is also in a movie with my husband, Without Remorse, and she was fine in that. And I feel like that she has a strength and relevance about her as well. And I think that she would do a really good job at bringing into Storm. I also have DeWanda Wise, who I feel like I have to mention because everybody talks about her being cast as Storm a lot. I don't particularly want her to be Storm. There's something about her that I don't quite like. I did watch She's Gotta Have It, and she was fine because her character Nola kind of is up and down anyway. I don't want her to be Storm. I mean, if she was cast, I can't say I'd be happy or that I would be like, okay, but I feel like I have to mention her because people mention her a lot. But I just don't know if I think she's that great of an actress. Out of the people that I've listed so far, I think she's probably one of the weaker actresses, personally. So I think that's probably part of it too. But a fun fact for you, she was originally cast as Maria Rambeau in Captain Marvel, but she had to reschedule, which is why we have Lashana Lynch instead. I also feel like I need to mention Yetide Badaki. I haven't seen her in anything. I know she's an American God, but I haven't watched that, so I'm not familiar with her. But I've seen people mention her a lot as well, so I feel like I should mention her out of respect for the people who have said her. I wanted to include her as well. And then I have Christine Adams, who I particularly know from Black Lightning, and I think that she would do good as Storm as well. Lastly, I have Naomi Harris, who all through college, she is who I wanted to play Storm for the longest time, and I think that she still would do a fantastic job as Storm. Like, she's a fantastic actress. Very charming, very dynamic. Her being Tia Dalma in the Pirates of the Caribbean, which is what I was introduced to her from, really gives off that mysterious and kind of mystical aspect, goddess thing that Storm has. And then any physicality that she may do in James Bond, I don't watch those, but anything that she may do in that can obviously pull that off. And she was a ninja assassin, and just the being warm and caring to people and holding her own, she could obviously handle that. And I believe she can do an African accent because I think she played Winnie Mandela in one of the Nelson Mandela movies. So I think she probably can do an African accent too. And she was great in her couple scenes in Moonlight. So any type of vulnerability and sadness that she needs to have, I feel like she would kill that. So I know Naomi Harris would probably be like my second choice next to Sonequa. So definitely probably a longer video than expected because both of these characters have a lot of interesting history and they have a lot of different things going on. And Storm is such a beloved character that I really wanted to make sure I give her the attention that I wanted to give her. I probably could have done a video on her by herself, but I didn't want to do that. So if you definitely stuck with me throughout this entire thing, I really, really appreciate you. Of course, you can always skip through with the chapters I put in the video, but I hope you did end up watching the whole thing. So I don't particularly see these two characters interacting that much, but I feel like obviously they could because she does come in as part of this new team, and I feel like that he would probably say something off the wall and she'd be like, "Be quiet, little boy." Just like so to recap, the teenage versions I have for Warren and Ororo, I have Owen Patrick Joyner and Riel Downs. For young adult, I have Austin Butler and Coco Jones or Lovey Simone. And then for my older adult versions, I have Dan Stevens and Sonequa Martin Green, low-key Naomi Harris, as these characters. So what do you guys think of my fan casting of these two characters? Do you agree with me? Do you see where I'm coming from? Do you have a completely different option than the ones that I've suggested? If so, please tell me in the comment section below. Interact with me. I would love to hear your thoughts. And how do you want them to introduce the mutants into the MCU? Please tell me how you would like to see that handled. Let me know your thoughts and comments in the sections below. Part 4 will be coming out hopefully the week after this one is posted. And please check out some of my other videos as well. I have other fan casts. I have trailer reactions and things like that. So give my channel a nice little look through and like and comment and subscribe. Hit that bell. Get notifications for when I post more videos. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.